All right, cool. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining. I think, oh yeah, there you go. That's the right one. I have a little bit of a different perspective, I think, on the SBIR program, because I think unlike the folks here, I'm not the innovator, or not the original innovator. I'll hopefully help innovate a little bit along the way, but I own a small company called NuRelm, and we're a software company, and we've been around since 1999. And let's see if I can make this clicker work. And I think the beginning of our first decade or so, we did a lot of fun work. We built software, initially web-based software, and then eventually moved to building mobile apps. But eventually, we, through academic partnerships, ended up doing what I think of as fun and meaningful work. So we started out doing a lot of work with innovators on things that they really cared about, that seemed like they would help people, as opposed to just helping our commercial clients sell more tennis shoes or whatever you do as a software company. So our mission is to work with builders and pioneers to improve lives. And I think the SBIR program has been a big part of that. So we started out in 2013 thinking, how can we do more work that we really like doing? And we ended up competing in the first pinch competition in 2014. And we made it to the very last proposal, very last presentation, but we didn't get our work funded. But I ended up meeting a lot of really cool people in that. And one of those people was who's a person who's now a good friend, Dana Rofi. We did an SBIR submission, and that was our very first SBIR, this thing called MCARE that we got awarded in 2017. Met some other really cool folks, a guy named Oliver Lindheim, who's been a great friend and partner. And we got another project funded called Lemur DX, which was his idea to objectively measure hyperactivity with a smartwatch, where we encountered many of the same issues and are still working on those issues now that you mentioned on watches. And then met through the same kind of like chain of events, a really cool person, Anna Radovic, who's an MD. And she had an idea to help adolescents manage their depression using passive sensing and creating an app that would help sort of detect when an adolescent with mild depression had more than mild depression when they weren't otherwise being monitored. So, we spent a lot of time working on those projects. That last one was a fast track, so it was a phase 1 and a phase 2. And then more recently, we got a phase 2 funded of one of these projects I just told you about, Lemur DX. And we got direct to phase 2 funded on a project called Fast in Bed Tracking, working with this guy over here, John, who is had this great idea that he's been working on for quite a few years with a grad student who's now not a grad student, that helps people in wheelchairs weigh themselves, which is a thing that we all take for granted that they're not able to do. So to me, the program, the SBIR program, has been a way to take really cool ideas and move them toward the market, and to help us kind of have fun work, but also to get ideas that could help people out into the world. So I think there are a lot of challenges, and I think you all mentioned a lot of those challenges in your presentation. So finding great ideas and great people is really hard. I think, as most of you here are probably innovators, you probably have great ideas and you are the great people, but finding the rest of the team is really hard. Writing proposals is hard. I don't think anybody that works in research world knows differently. It's not easy work. Managing government grants is incredibly hard. It's a brand new thing, as Stephen mentioned. And then I think really managing the intersection between research and commercialization is really hard. So here are my quick suggestions, and I'd be happy to talk about any of these things as we kind of go forward. So I think from the perspective of a researcher, where to get ideas. I think looking for a team that includes someone who can help you with the commercialization part of it, that's really good at it. Maybe somebody who's got some experience, or I think there's a lot of experience here at Pitt that can help guide you in the right direction. Just finding the right people to help you with that commercialization side, I think, is really important. Writing proposals, hard. I think you already are all familiar with NIH or NSF proposal writing, or probably will be soon. I think the difference here is there's this commercialization component. So that's the sort of added twist to these is you have to have great science, but it also has to be commercializable. The science has to be cool. It doesn't have to be like inventing cold fusion, but it's got to be, something that makes sense. So I feel like there's got to be a little bit of old and a little bit of new to make a good proposal. Like here's this thing that we've tested out, it works. Here's a new way that we want to use it. That always seems like a great way to go about it. I think this is like from a person starting a company's perspective, managing the grant is hard. So one of the things that we did that's been really useful in the last few years is we hired a government, like a firm that's a government accounting, it's an accounting firm. It's not a government, it's not run by the government. It's an accounting firm that knows government grants. And that's been really helpful and has helped me sleep much more soundly at night because I'm not constantly afraid that I didn't fill out a form or I took money out incorrectly or withdrew funds too quickly instead of not quickly enough. Super useful. It's kind of expensive, but it's better than hiring somebody. And I think it makes a lot more sense than trying to train yourself to do all this stuff because it's this really weird specialized field. And then I think, the last point here is this intersection between research and commercialization is really hard. Figuring out how to take a really cool, digital health idea and sell it to somebody in such a way that you can make a profit or enough of a profit to keep the company going. It's a really tricky question, Of course, there are lots of things that you do know how to sell. It's a market that's already there, but a lot of the work that you're probably thinking about is a market that's not there, or it's an idea that's not out there yet. So figuring out how to get that out in the world is hard. I think we started out with this idea that we're going to build a cool thing and then we're going to deliver it clinically with some of these digital health interventions, particularly these mental health interventions. But I think that's really ambitious. Like the burden of evidence is incredibly high. Physicians are incredibly busy. Getting them to use some new tool is not something that you can get insurance to pay for immediately. So I think thinking about those things in more incremental steps, like we've started to create commercialization plans where we propose that the first step of an idea is going to be that we're going to sell it to researchers who have the same exact problem as the researchers on our team to use. So I think, what you mentioned, Stephen, is a great idea. Like, here's a service that we have that somebody just like me can use. You've already proven that it's useful for somebody like them because you are somebody like them. And then I think you can use that to generate more and more evidence to get to this higher and higher level. So I guess the other kind of takeaway is there's the opportunity to start your own company to do this, or obviously you could work with somebody like us. I think that's a really important decision, and I think both of those choices make a lot of sense depending on your goals. There's a lot of additional burden of doing it yourself, but there's a lot of additional kind of like trust and figuring out how you're going to work with somebody. So if you're going to work with a company that does these things, so I from my perspective, it's really important for us to work with the researchers that we find or that come to us in such a way that their goals are fulfilled. So if their interest is in seeing this idea be commercialized and doing more research beyond kind of where the scientific funding can take them, great. But if their interest is also in starting a company and being part of that company and owning the IP, we want to make sure that's captured and that's something that we plan to do. And they don't have to feel like, oh, I'm going to have somebody else build this idea and it's going to like theirs, or something that I don't have control over. So I think if you do work with somebody, just make sure your needs are spelled out up front and maybe protected. And it sounds like there are a lot of people at Pitt that can help do that. So that's it. You have a little bit right now.